Hey, board gamers, BJ from Board Game Gumbo here, back in the Gumbo pot. It's another episode of Gumbo Live. It's episode number 143, Gumbo Live, the number one Facebook Live talk show in League City, Texas, dedicated to board gaming. Our special guest tonight, not one, we've got two. We've got Mike Gnade, the founder and lead designer of Rock Manor Games. We know Rock Manor Games. We played many of their games. In fact, Rosemary covered Maximum Apocalypse for the Gumbo. Barnes played and covered Set a Watch, one of our a game we used to play on Gumbo game nights all the time on Anubis. And of course, you remember Carlos and I doing Lawyer Up. We've got Lawyer Up season 2, thanks to Mike. So we'll be playing that pretty soon, hopefully. Jared and I are going to try to get that in the Twitch channel on our Tuesdays. And then we also have Clarence Simpson, the designer of one of Jack, my son's favorite games of 2022. That's right, The Wolves. Played it with the board boys over at BGG Con. A fantastic time, fantastic game with a really diabolical action mechanism. So, I'm not a big fan of area majority games, area control games, but this is one that I liked. I really enjoyed. Hey, hit us up on social media tonight, on Twitter, on Facebook, at Board Game Gumbo. We're going to be looking for some questions from you because we're going to be talking with Mike and Clarence about their brand new game on Kickstarter. Actually, it's expansions, 2 expansions to Merchants of Magic. It's already funded. We posted a link today, and the Gumbo bumped it up. Not really, but it's funded already, so you're going to be able to check it out. So we'll be looking for your questions in the chat crew tonight. So make sure you check in and let me see. I think I've got him here, and there he is, Mike from Rock Manor Games. Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
And we've also got Clarence, the big designer. Hey, Clarence.
Hey, yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Welcome to the Gumbo Pot. I don't have to tell either one of you what an elevator pitch is, but Mike, give us the elevator pitch. Who's Mike and what is Rock Manor Games?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Mike. I'm the founder and owner of Rock Manor Games. It started off just as a little side project, side hustle for me to get my own designs out there on Kickstarter. And over the years, it's grown, and we publish other people's games and have, trying to build and grow a following. We're probably best known for some of the games you already mentioned, our cooperative games, Set a Watch and Maximum Apocalypse. We also have Lawyer Up and some other games out there as well. Merchants of Magic being the most recent one on Kickstarter currently.
Speaking of Lawyer Up, our friends from Portland Gamecraft, Evan and Ryan, saying it's time to lawyer up. It's true. And Clarence checking in also. Clarence, before you give us the elevator pitch, I just have one question.
Okay.
I think I have it ready here. Let me see. I got a question for you. Who is the most famous person from Delaware? Is it Mike Gnade or is it Aubrey Plaza? I'm trying to think. Which one do you think? The most famous resident of Delaware. What do you think?
It's got to be Mike, right?
In the board gaming industry.
It's got to be Mike.
In the board gaming industry is the only thing. You got to add a lot of caveats to that. Funny story about Aubrey Plaza. I have several friends. She's only a couple years younger than me, and I had several friends who were in her circle. I had friends who were in a band together, Spring Standards,
really?
And they knew her, and she I was in the same room with her in high school a couple times. Not that I knew who she was at the time. I mean, I knew her name was Aubrey, but so Delaware is a small enough place that I've at least crossed paths with her.
I saw Mike was from Delaware, and the only real person I could think of from Hollywood was her. So I didn't even realize.
Or the president, whatever.
Yeah.
No, we didn't go to the same high school. Yeah. We didn't go to the same high school. But I mean, she lived in the northern part of the state, which is where most people live, and I had a lot of friends in drama and everything, and they had their own band, and we would the 4 of them would practice in their basement, typical high school stuff. And we would go over and hang out with them while they were practicing their music in the basement. And there were a few times, for parties and stuff where we were hanging out where she was there as well. I believe she went to Brandywine or one of the other public high schools, but some of the people in the band were from other schools because I went to a smaller school. So
we got a few people checking in.
I lived in Delaware for 6 months.
There you go.
I didn't know that, Steve.
From birth to 6 months. Didn't go to high school or anything, but from the age of 0 to the age of 6 months.
We got a few people checking in. Stacy says, bring on the magic. Stacy, we're going to be talking about that. And of course, the Jay Bell checking in.
Mhm.
Jay couldn't make it tonight. Jay's busy doing his design work, I'm sure, getting ready for Sobo.
Hey, Jay.
And of course, the reason that we said that we're the number one Facebook live talk show from League City, our friends Patrick and Cindy Newman, who we're going to see at Southern Board Game Fest. Don't forget, Southern Board Game Fest tickets, badges are available. SouthernGameFest.com. It's October 14th and 15th. Mike and Clarence have not committed yet, but they're still on the fence. It's only in 2 weeks, so hopefully see you there. So, Clarence, speaking of music, you heard him talk about Aubrey, right?
Uh-huh.
A little birdie told me that you were also in a band, and not only that, you and I share something in common. We were both in cover bands, playing and slinging it out for people. So I got a question for you. When are we going to get a game that is based on either the freeze or the stroke or any one of the other, or the strut or any one of the other line dances you and I probably had to do 1,000 times during our career?
Oh man, yeah, there was a bunch of those for sure.
Have you ever been asked to play the freeze or one of those line dances?
No, I did. I mean, we definitely did like the electric slide. We did some other stuff. Like
electric slide.
Wobble. Yeah, I mean, we were more like a soul funk band, doing mostly that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, there was still a pretty good number of line dances happening at any given moment.
Clarence, Evan and I talked about this. Evan's also in a band, besides being the designer after the Empire. And I've talked about it with a number. Steve, you know this. Over the years, I've always been fascinated by how many people in the board game industry have been in bands or are musicians. Clarence, I'm always curious because I asked the same question. What's the theory? What's the attraction between music and board gaming? Is there one? Is there a connection?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I've definitely met a pretty decent number of musicians out there in the board game space. Ashwin Kamath, my co-designer on the Wolves, he has a history in music as well. I'm not sure what the connection
Clarence!
is though.
Well, Marty from Rolling Dice Take Names, when I asked him the question, he thought it might be math, which I reject because I'm terrible at math. But you know, scales and math and all that have to do with that. And there's a lot of math in board games. Steve, you have a theory?
I have a couple theories on this because I've played keys since I was in first grade. And so, yeah, I think there's an element of it that is maybe the theme is the melody, but the mechanics or the harmony. We're used to thinking in layers. In board games, we're used to thinking in layers of things. And if all you have is a vocal line, then you're missing something if you don't have the rhythm behind it and the harmony to back it. So I think there's an element of that that's beautiful math in some way.
Patrick, I think tenor sax counts, but if you look at Clarence's picture there, I even see a keyboard, I think, to his
There's a keyboard right over here.
Yes, there is.
What about you, Mike? Mike, do you have an instrument, favorite instrument?
Do I have a favorite instrument? I can't play any of.
You play?
No, that I play. I mean, listen. When I was like in grade school, I played trumpet for a year, and I did drums for 2 years. So I was not. I mean, I never was that into instrument playing. I was in concert choir in high school. That's about it. So vocals, I guess. Steve. I'll be the vocals.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I wouldn't say I'm overly musical. Like I'd say I'm on the lower end of, you know, how interested or passionate I am about it.
I think there's something in there.
Thing for me.
Yeah, there's something in there that when you're playing the game, you kind of give yourself over to the game, and when you're listening to or playing the music, you give yourself over to the music. There's something where people are coming together to make something different than individual parts.
So it's some great theories. I'm distracted because I've got convention on the brain. I've got total convention on the brain. Like I want to be here in this show, but everybody's at Eschenspiel right now. And I'm like, I feel like there's a part of me out there. I've got Southern Board Game Fest in 2 weeks. So I'm kind of curious while I dream about going to one of those two conventions, do either one of you guys have, you know, the envy or is there that bucket list convention? And why isn't it Southern Board Game Fest?
A bucket list convention. I would say the biggest one I haven't been to, or like I guess there's a few of them. I haven't been to any of the Board Game Geek conventions. And for us, one of the things I have not. That's like, I mean, I've been to Essen, I've been to PAX Unplugged, PAX East, PAX West, obviously Origins and Gen Con. But I've never been to any of the Board Game Geek ones. And for us, being sort of like a smaller publisher, one of the things I think is important, or that I find going to different conventions, is going to the same convention year after year. If you're selling and you have products coming out consistently, that can be great for you. Gen Con's obviously huge, so you have to sort of go to that one. But I find that when we go to a new convention in a new area that we haven't been before, we interact with new people, because there are people like local who can't make it to Gen Con every year, don't go to Origins, and they can sort of discover you for the first time. And I personally like making that connection in a booth or at a convention with someone playing the game. I mean, it's like marketing like anything else. You can reach a lot more people online, but there is something, I think, in board gaming especially, that's sort of special about connecting and demoing one-on-one. I mean, it's one of those things, like, I'm good with faces, but not great with names. And I've been going to enough conventions where people come up to me and they'll say hi to me when I'm working a booth and say, "Oh my God, we played so and such, 2 years ago." And I recognize their face and I'm like, "Oh yeah." And I may even remember something about the game, but names, horrible. Definitely. I wish we had name tags at, conventions more often than not. I mean, we have the badges with the names on them sometimes, but they're hard to see. And it's, I wish I was better at names, like a politician or something.
So, Mike, 2018, I taught games for my buddy Tom Wetzel at Cosmos at BGG Con over in Dallas. And one of the guys that came through the booth was this guy named Paul, older feller who I have since seen at every convention. And I always see him at conventions and I say, "Hey, Paul, what's up?" And he looks at me. It should be the opposite, right? I shouldn't remember this guy at all, because I literally demoed, those Cosmos games to hundreds of people. But for some reason, I see him at every convention. I work out next to him on the elliptical at Dice Tower Con. It is so weird. And I always remember his name. It's Paul. So I don't know, maybe, I know the feeling that you see so many people and you make those connections. What about you, Clarence? Do you have a bucket list convention that you haven't been?
I don't know about any single one. Like, I haven't honestly been to a lot of the big ones. I've been to a pretty decent number of like smaller local cons. But as far as like the big ones, I've only been to PAX Unplugged, and I just went to Origins for the first time this year. Mm-hmm. So I mean, there's still a bunch out there that I haven't experienced. Although, to be honest, I wonder how much I would enjoy it. I feel like Gen Con and Essen might be past my threshold of like insanity.
Mm-hmm. Gen Con is work, man.
Yeah.
Work. What's crazy is how different Gen Con and Essen are.
Exactly, Evan. That's exactly right. Paul's like, I can't get away from this guy. But go ahead.
Because Essen is so... Essen I found very weird. I went for the first time last year.
Weird?
Yeah, it's completely different than any American convention. I mean, it has a lot more people. But it's basically, number one, the expo hall's open an extra hour. And if you're working a booth, you feel that extra hour. Trust me. You're like, feet are hurting, like everything. And then what else is crazy is, like, at Gen Con, PAX Unplugged, Origins, after the expo hall closes, there's like other things going on. At Essen, everyone's gone at the same time. Literally, like the metro thing, the metro's packed. Everyone's leaving, whether they work there or whether they were there just to buy games. And the other thing I found was weird is, like, there's nothing but the expo hall. It's food in expo hall. All the expo halls are jam packed with people because they don't run demos. You play full games. So like when I would take a break and want to like play a game, it'd be like, no chance whatsoever. Like some booths were like, had like a sign up sheet and they're like, "We're booked for the rest of the convention." Like, sorry, or you can sign up for tomorrow for 3 hours. And then like no one else is like manning the booth, giving you an overview. It's like a store and a place to sit down and play the game. And that's it.
And at Gen Con, we literally running people through. We'll play, like when I did Reavers of Midgard for Grey Fox, it was just the first turn or two. That's it. Play the first turn or two, and let's get the next group in.
I mean, I like when you can play like a round or two, but I certainly want someone to go up and be like, "Here's a quick, have you heard of this game? Here's a quick elevator pitch," just like you had us do at the front. And like Essen was not like that at all. It was just super packed, and like I felt like, for me, I like a lot of the other stuff, outside the expo hall and the panels and game nights and like free play libraries and all these other things. And Essen is just like devoid of that.
Steve, you got a bucket list convention?
I tend to think that, kind of along the lines of what you guys were both saying, I think Essen might be just outside of my comfort zone. While I might be interested in going because I would like to go to the area, I don't know that that's the convention that calls to me. PAX U is probably about the limit of my high-end things. It's manageable and run well, and you can get out and come back, and there's interesting stuff. I might be interested in UK Gaming Expo as the next one. That'd be probably the next one
cool.
that would be there for me.
That's my bucket list for sure. Yeah, I've heard good things about that.
More so than Essen, perhaps.
Yep. The best thing about Essen was going to Germany for me. Like, that was the best part.
I agree
and
with
Essen
you.
was the worst part of the German trip. Like, Frankfurt and everywhere else was
It's
better.
a shame.
I described Essen as the Trenton of Europe. It's like in the middle of everything. It's got a convention center. It's got a train station. Like,
and that's
sort of blue collar. Like,
right.
Spiral potatoes.
Yeah.
True.
I thought that Steve was going to say ChuckCon 3, but I guess I don't know
please.
him that well.
You talked about bucket list. That's already been checked off the bucket.
You haven't been to ChuckCon 3 though. You haven't been to that one yet.
Yeah.
Mine is weird. So mine is actually Evan mentioned a good one. The Gathering of Friends. But mine is weird. I would love to go to because we have Mardi Gras off here. Mardi Gras is a big holiday down here in Louisiana, and I'd love to go to the Jeu de Con. And the reason for that is I love those little small French games like Sea Salt and Paper or any of the other tons of games that you see that come over from France and Europe and Italy and all that. And that's what this convention is really focused on. All of those small box, really, in your face card games. And there's a lot of player interaction, a lot of different things. I'd love to go to that Jeu de Con. And no one really knows about it much in America. No one goes from here. I think BGG went once and covered it. They've never been back. It's like the forgotten con. The other one is Lyricon. I hear a lot of people talk about the one in Portugal. That one looks pretty cool too. So,
Evan chiming in that ChuckCon 3 is clearly the best con of the season.
Best con of the season. Yeah.
Absolutely. We do have to. He and I have to work on some more Simon and Garfunkel to be able to really, put the.
That was a lot of fun. Yep. Hey, BJ from Gumbo here. I have got my guests Clarence Simpson and Mike from Rock Manor Games, Mike Gnade, and we are talking some of the spicy hot games. One of those spicy hot games, speaking of ChuckCon, was a game that just kept getting played over and over, and that was Quacks at Quedlinburg. Mike, you put this one on your list. I'm curious, is this a new play for you, or is this one that is just a beloved game that you love playing? What's the story?
It's beloved. The reason it came to my mind when you guys sent this over is I was thinking spicy in like the context of like food and flavorful. And, this game's all about like mixing your potions and everything. So that's why it came to mind for the word. And then I think it was also top of mind because this was a huge, it's one of those games. It's a huge favorite in my library. I don't think I'll ever get rid of it. But I recently introduced it to my 8 and 6-year-old. And they both, more importantly, the 6-year-old stayed with us and played a full game. The 8-year-old's pretty good and likes games a lot more. But my youngest actually came in, and other than a little bit of cheating, I think, with looking in the bags and pulling stuff out, we listened to all the rules and like we got everything. There was a little bit of cheating, but I just told him, I was like, listen, do you guys want to play this with Dad? Like, you can't be like cheating, like don't be looking at the bag. I want to see you like pull it out from underneath the table and like we'll hold it out. But I don't really care about winning when I'm teaching my girls games. I just sort of want to get through it and have a good time. So I didn't care that much, but I riffed on them a little bit.
Are you playing the base game? You playing some expansions?
Just the base game. I haven't gotten any of these expansions yet. I probably should because I do play this one a lot.
I like the Herb Witches. Patrick's played more of the expansions. I've only played the Herb Witches. I really enjoyed it. I like. I think is it the white potion that it brings in, Steve? If I remember right,
it brings something else. The player count too. Yes.
It expands the player count, and it's got bigger numbers on some of the other ones. Like if I remember right, the orange ones. It's been a while since I played, but I haven't blinged mine out. Mine is just the cardboard. I do find that I've got a couple of grand bugs that like push your luck games, so I'm excited to hear that your girls have played we've been playing one from Flat Out Games with penguins in it. I'm trying to remember what it's called. Deep Dive. Yeah, Deep Dive. And they love anything where they can push their luck a little bit. So I'm thinking Quacks might be the next game. So Patrick says The Alchemist. I have not played that. That's the newest expansion for it. I haven't played it. You either, Mike, right?
I have not played any expansions for this one. You know, I'm not great at getting expansions in general. I have to really see a need for it, like when I'm playing the game. And Quacks, I have so much fun. Like, I'm sure expansions add stuff, but it's like I don't even need it because.
Oh, look at this, Steve! Someone's really blinged it out. They got the treasure chest and everything. Clarence, have you played the Quacks?
I have. I'm like Mike. I haven't played any of the expansions, but I've played the base game a couple times.
Thoughts?
Oh, I like it. Yeah, I mean, it's something like, especially as a designer, if you're thinking about doing like a push your luck game, you keep going back and looking at Quacks and how it does it, because it does it so well.
Yeah, I love push your luck. Bad push your luck is a travesty. Great push your luck is fantastic gaming.
Mm-hmm.
This is really good stuff.
Can't Stop is still my favorite, I think.
I would tend to agree with you.
Yeah, but Quacks, the very first time I played it with the crew from iHeart Board Games, and we were sitting around the table, and we were literally banging on the table, you know, encouraging the other people to keep pulling, keep pulling. I love it when somebody gets to that, they're the only one left and they're pulling those, and you know they've got a bunch, and they're doing the math in their head. They're like, okay, I've got 5 tokens left. I've got 3 bad ones. You know, I'm gonna just pull one more time. Oh, I love it.
And you've got to bait them too. You've got to say, oh, come on, look at your odds. Your odds are great. Keep going.
Ashwin
says, you're fine unless you draw the 3. That's what I kept saying to my girls. I'm like, as long as you don't draw the 3, like bomb, you're fine.
Just keep going.
Like you're at
is
3
there a bad push your luck game? I'm trying to think of one. Is there a bad push your luck game? Oh, it's a great mechanic.
It is a great mechanic, but it needs to be done well so that there's some sense that you've got agency. You want to feel like you had the choice, and when it happens, it's a success. But when it's a failure, you want to be able to point at chance and then go back to it again. That's why we kept playing it over and over at ChutCon, because Jake was doing so well, but Becky was just doing better, and you had to re-rack him and play again.
Yeah, Clarence? I mean, I don't love Mystic Veil. That's the only one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I don't hate it.
Our idea for a game here. Push your luck game about audience members yelling at Clarence band and throwing out, can you play Leonard Skinner?
Yeah.
play some Skinner, man. What do you think? And if they pick the wrong song, they push their luck and the band closes for the night.
There you go. And we call it Freebird, right?
Freebird, yeah. Play some Skinner, man. Play some Margaritaville, man. Hey, so J Bell has one that I absolutely love. Skate Summer by Pandasaurus Games. Clarence, the same company, I think. Isn't that right? That did the Wolves, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Skate Summer. This game has been under the radar and should not be. This is a push your luck game that is just, oh man, it's so thematic. It really feels like you're doing tricks, bouncing your skateboard all over the park. I'm not a skater, dude, so I can't say that it's thematic because I recognize anything in there, Steve. But yeah, because Steve, you've seen me athletically, so it's not that great. But Skate Summer, any of you guys have played Skate Summer?
Mm-mm.
I haven't. I've seen it though. I mean, I've seen it at the Pandasaurus booth the last few conventions I've been at.
Deep Blue Patrick, I don't know, man. I liked it, but there's one that I'm not so sure that I thought it was okay. You know, I don't know. I thought it was okay. No. But I'm glad you like it, Patrick. We're definitely not dogging it. And I know why Patrick likes it. He's a deep sea diver. He loves anything to do with NASA or water. So any kind of final frontier, that's what Patrick likes. So he's definitely biased for that. Okay, so that's the Quacks of Quedlinburg. Fantastic choice, Mike. Good spicy game that I think everybody approves. I know I do. I like that one. So BJ from Morgan Gumbo. I've got my guests here, Clarence Simpson, designer of the Wolves and also Merchants of Magic. And we've got Mike and Gnade from Rock Manor Games. And we are talking some spicy odd games. The one that Clarence talked about, let me see if I can find it. Steve, this is one that got me really excited.
I'm very interested.
You know why?
And
you know why? Because we are both big fans of these designers.
Absolutely.
This is Die Wanderlinden Terme, otherwise known
nailed it, BJ.
Clarence.
Nailed it.
Yeah, nailed it. Otherwise known, Clarence, as what?
Wandering Towers.
The Wandering Towers. Oh, Steve, tell Clarence why you and I are excited about this game.
Oh, it's Cromer and Kiesling. You see those names, and I have to give it a try. It may not always be fantastic, but there's a good chance it's going to be solid to wonderful somewhere in there.
I'm lucky. I haven't hit a bad one yet. So
yeah,
the combination of those two. So Clarence, give us the elevator pitch. What is Wandering Towers? Because it looks kind of like a kid's thing, but they tell me it's not.
Yeah, I mean, well, like kids can definitely play it, but I think there's enough interesting stuff there for adults too. And it feels like it shouldn't work because it's both like a roll and move and a memory game, which are two things that are like instant turn-offs for so many people. But yeah, so the idea is that you've got this little circular track with your little and you've got a handful of wizard meeples that you're trying to race around the track, and there's one, that little black tower there is like the goal that you're trying to get all of your wizards into that goal. But there's also all of these little constructible tower pieces that are scattered around the loop. And so every time that it's your turn, you can either move wizards forward along the track, or you can actually pick up and move towers forward along the track. And the wizards can move on top of the towers, and then you can actually move towers on top of other towers. So there may actually end up being wizards on top of a tower, which you then put towers on top of those wizards, and then it's it traps them and they can't be moved for a while. And you can free them later, but part of the trick of it is that you have to remember where your wizards are at. And so,
how do you not know where your wizards are?
Well, I mean, yeah, because they're covered, right? Yeah, so you can't see them.
Inside the tower on top.
Okay, inside the tower, yeah. And sometimes it's easy to remember, but once like your wizard is trapped, and then the whole stack of towers starts moving around, you're like, I think it was on the third level, but maybe it was the fourth.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So this is different than I thought, Steve. I thought, based on the big ring, I thought this was going to be a rondelle game, and I'm not hearing rondelle at all.
No, it's nothing like that.
Do you drop off the pieces of the tower as you go around, kind of like Mancala style?
No. So if you've got a stack of towers, like let's say you've stacked up 5 tower pieces on one space, and you go to move that tower, you can move from wherever, whatever height on that tower. You can just move the top piece. You can move the bottom piece. So you move the middle piece if you want to uncover something. Kind of do it however you want to do it. And there's also, it has like a sort of a magic system, which it's really just some like special actions you can take by spending these potion tokens. And the way you get the potion tokens is by trapping the wizards. So there's this built-in incentive to mess with people so that you can do those cool things.
Interesting.
I'm liking everything I'm hearing already. It's Cromer and Kiesling, but I'm liking the mechanics. I like the table presence. This looks pretty cool. Yes. Mike, have you played this?
I have not. I've not played it.
I think Keith said this was one of his favorite games recently.
Keith Law?
Yeah. I think he wrote about it in the blog recently and said it was really strong. To me, this seems like when I see Cromer and Kiesling with stacking things like that, I'm thinking Torres, but with like theme and fun. And
almost the reverse of Torres, right? Because you're trying to get on top of the towers in Torres, and here you're trying to trap other people inside them, right?
Torres in motion in some way.
Yeah. Well, if Keith has it, I'll just borrow it from him.
Oh,
yes, he's down. He's down local.
He's like 10 minutes away from me.
I think Keith was the last guy in the last season, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, we had such a good time with Keith.
Yep.
He was a fun guest. And I've been reading his stuff for years, so that was kind of a thrill for me to have him on there. But I'm digging this, man. I'm so glad you showed this. I always wanted to talk. I don't know anybody personally who's played it other than that brief conversation we had with Keith. So, and it was really kind of just a throwaway talk, if I remember right.
Yeah. He didn't talk about it much with us. I think afterward he posted a blog post about it, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
So yeah.
So I am totally digging this, and I'm gonna have to try to track down a copy. Anybody else? Steve, you hearing some stuff?
I'm digging it, and I think they have another one coming out at Essen, Terra Pyramides, which is supposed to be not similar in style, but very accessible. Not as heavy hitting.
What's your favorite thing about it, Clarence? What's your favorite thing about it?
Oh man, I think like it's really accessible. You know, I can play it with my kids, and also interesting enough decisions that I enjoy doing it myself. You know, which is already not very common to be able to find a game that can do
Nope,
both.
you got to find those dad games, man. Those are
Yeah.
good games to find. For
Very
sure.
true.
They are worth gold. Well, that is Wandering Towers from Cromer and Kiesling. I don't have it up. Well, actually, I guess I do. I don't remember who published this one.
Good question. I'll dig.
Oh,
you've got it
here. It is art by Michael Menzel. Of course, we should have picked that up. Abacus Spiel, and looks like here in the States, it's Capstone Games. Okay, good. Yeah, Wandering Towers. It was on my list to check out for Eschenspiel back in 2022, so it's moving up. I want to see this one, so
yeah, definitely.
Thank you for bringing that one, Clarence. That is one I'm super excited about. BJ from Board Game Gumbo. I've got my guests here, Mike Gnade from Rock Manor Games and Clarence Simpson, the designer of Merchants of Magic. We are talking about some spicy-eyed games, and one of those that I'm super excited about is this Kickstarter that launched today. It got the Gumbo bump when I posted it was at 13,000. Now it's already funded. So people in the chat crew, this game is already funded. But this is actually the expansions, isn't that right, Mike?
Yeah, it's the expansions for Merchants of Magic, but it's also the first time Merchants of Magic's on Kickstarter. So it's one of the only games Rock Manor Games has released that didn't get its own Kickstarter. Partly because it was just sort of, a little roll and write game. But we've added a lot to it and beefed it up. So now it can have its proper Kickstarter release.
So it's set in the Set a Watch universe. So Mike, I am curious. I want to hear some inside baseball. How did you find this game? Did you already know Clarence, or were you looking for something to add?
So was I looking for something to add? I wasn't looking for anything in particular. We never really are. We're just looking for stuff that like sort of fits the games we like and the games we sort of put out. But I mean, Clarence can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was during COVID times, and during COVID times there was there's these speed pitching publisher speed pitching events at some of the conventions. Origins. I've done it in person at Origins. I've never done it at Gen Con because I'm too busy. I've done it Unpub. But basically, it's like in 2 hours, you see 12 designs. And the publisher is the one who moves around, just like speed dating when you're dating on a date. This is just dating a game. And the publisher is the one who's moved so the designer can keep their game set up. And during COVID, and I mean, they still do it now, even after COVID, because I think it was really successful. They do speed pitching on online in Discord or on online with Tabletop Simulator and stuff.
I watched DJ Bell do one, Steve, one time. Jay did a speed pitch, but it was actually everybody got to watch it. That was kind of wild to see that.
Yeah. So at these speed pitches events, you get pitched about 10 or 12 games, and some of these from some of these pitches, I've signed a couple games, and from some of them, I basically make a list of the 2 or 3 that sound interesting, and I follow up with the designer and try to play it, or get in deeper detail because it's a speed pitch. You're only talking to them 5 to 8 minutes or something like that. And I met Clarence on one of these online events. The online one I went to with Clarence is actually my most successful. I signed 2 games from that speed pitch, and I haven't signed any from any in-person event since then. I think one more maybe digitally, but that was my most successful one was during COVID when it was the only game in town.
Steve, I feel like this is an episode of Newlywed Game. We're supposed to reveal what Clarence says is the actual truth about what happened on that first time they met, and it turns out they were actually in Paris, and they were
no, it was definitely online.
This is where we would have to use private chat.
I just don't know if it was because I did a couple of those. I'm not sure if it was the first one in 2020 or if it was more 2021. Year wise, I'd be totally off. So if it was a Newlywed Game, it's when's our anniversary? I'd be 1 year, 2 year. I'd be way off on the years.
Clarence, how close did Mike get it?
So, well, I was actually going to say, so Mike, I don't know if you remember this, but we actually didn't meet at the event, the actual speed pitch event, because they had like 2 separate hour-long blocks. And so like you were in one block and I was in the other block, and Mike just did his due diligence because they hand all of the
yeah, that's okay. Yeah,
all the like sell sheets the designers have to all of the publishers, even if you don't have a meeting with them at the time. And so Mike looked back through those sell sheets and saw it and contacted me actually outside of the event.
Interesting.
right.
So
like I said,
stick-to-it.
so I do make a list. Like I'll go through the pitches, obviously, and I'll make my notes of the ones I'm getting pitched in real time, and then I do go through and look through all the sell sheets, and I usually pick. I try to follow up with at least 2 or 3 to follow up with and like maybe play the game online or play around online. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less, but like that's about sort of what I think we could ever handle. Like I don't want to like pitch everybody because I know you can't publish everything, right? So you got to do some filtering.
So Clarence, give us the elevator pitch. Tell the chat crew, sell them right now. You're talking directly to them. What is Merchants of Magic? What's unique about it? I know it's roll and write. So
So Merchants of Magic is a roll and write. I guess there's a couple unique things about it. It uses polyhedral dice to be kind of like your resource generators in the game. I guess quick context here: you're playing as in a fantasy world as a merchant of a magic item shop, and so you have these customers that are looking for specific magic items in your shop. And you're trying to craft those items and sell them to the customers, but they're impatient, so if they don't find what they want, they're going to look in your competitors' stores. And the way that is done functionally, mechanically, is that you have these cards that represent the customers, the orders that they're looking for, and every round they will rotate around the table. So you'll have a set number of customers that are in your shop at any given time. You can fulfill those orders in that round, but if not, then the leftmost one's going to rotate to the clockwise to the next player. And so you can also kind of look to your right and see which orders are going to be coming to you in the future rounds to kind of plan ahead a bit. And so that kind of gives a little bit more, I think, player interaction that is typical in a lot of roll and writes.
100%. It's
Definitely.
I mean, I would say that was the core mechanic that sort of sold me on it. And I was like, oh, this is not me just playing solitaire.
Yeah, a lot of them are basically solitaire, but it's a crunchy roll and write. You kind of advertise it, so where's that crunchy decision come from? Is it from the time aspect, or is it from what you're using with your dice?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's from the dice aspect of it. So again, it comes with the polyhedral dice. So there's a D6, a D8, D10, and a D12 in the game. And so what you do every round is one person rolls the dice, and then everybody's simultaneously using those dice to mark circles on their player sheets. There are all these circles that have a number in them, right? And so you're trying to complete, or you're trying to craft items and weapons and armor, and you're also trying to research these spell enchantments like fiery or shocking or whatever, and you combine those together to get like fiery shield or staff of the dwarves, which are the magic items. And you to mark any given circle, you have to have each circle has a numeric threshold. So it'll say like you have to have a value of 7 or higher, or it might say on the other side for the spell research you have to have a value of 4 or lower. So you actually need both high and low values are good. High values are good for crafting items. Low values are good for the spell research as well. And in addition, the all the circles that you can mark are broken down into 6 columns, and each column you're only allowed to use certain dice in those columns. So yeah, there's kind of a lot to think about. With any given die roll, you have a lot of options about what you could mark, but there's definitely some like efficiency puzzle of thinking out, I can do this now, but should I? Is there something that's more optimal? Depending on what you think might happen in the future.
You could, but should you? Stacy has a question for you, Mike. Is this the only way to get the base game?
So the base game has and was released. I can tell you that we, like Rock Manor Games in our office and our warehouses, we don't have any left. Well, we may have a few in Europe. I think there may be like less than 6 over in our EU hub. So obviously, if you're in the United States, you can't really get that one over here without paying a huge shipping bill, which I wouldn't advise. But is it available? I mean, it's not out of print. We're going to be it's out of print in that we haven't reprinted it yet. We're going to reprint it as part of this Kickstarter. But if you are a sly consumer, you may be able to find copies at a retailer online somewhere on Amazon. Like, I don't know. There's like different levels of out of print, right? It's like out of print, you can't get it directly from the person you think it is. There's like out of print, like it's the prices are a little higher on Amazon, and there's like out of print, like it's a Grail game. You can't find it anywhere except on the used market for like hundreds of dollars. And
so this would be one of the easiest ways to get it is just to get the base game.
I mean, this is the easiest way. This is definitely probably the cheapest and easiest way to guarantee that you'll get it, especially with like affordable shipping. But I would not be surprised if there are a few retailers that may have it may have a copy or two on their shelves, or there may be like a couple online retailers that have a copy or two. I haven't personally like searched for it online and like really clicked around to look for it.
So Clarence, Evan wants to know, did you return the staff to the dwarves?
I sold it.
That's the
whole point.
Yeah, and so the Kickstarter is not just about getting that base game, but there's also 2 brand new expansions. As Stacy said, hey, she's been looking. She can't find it. So Stacy,
I would trust Stacy. Stacy, if you're not finding it like easily, I would say it's pretty much out of print. All the last few copies we had. I know near the end of the summer, like that's when like our last copies got cleaned out from like our web store. Like we had like a box or 2 we found when we were doing an inventory check, and we sort of found like a dozen, and those dozen sort of went out the door pretty quick. And I saved a few for like this Kickstarter for like reviewer purposes.
Tell us about the new expansions, Clarence. What you got in these new expansions?
Yeah, I mean, so we've got it divided up into 2 packages here. We've got Dangerous Business and Draft of the Dragons, and each one has a couple different expansion modules that can be kind of mixed and matched however you like. You can play with everything. You can play with just one of the modules, however you want to, whatever kind of experience you want to craft for yourself and for your game group. Now, as for the specifics, like here in the Dangerous Business, the main thing that we have in here is we've got these new sponsored adventurer boards, which kind of replace the sponsored adventure cards from the base game.
Okay.
And so what they do is you now have more magic items that you can craft for your sponsored adventurers. They have a much bigger list now, and they have a combat value. That's what those little discs down there that you can the dials that you can rotate. And so every time that you craft an item for them that is on their list, it increases their combat value by some certain amount. And at the same time, we have a bunch of creature cards, and you're going to be dealing out at the beginning of the game. You're going to deal out a tier 1, tier 2, or level 1, level 2, level 3, and then an unhallowed boss as a final boss creature. So 4 creatures dealt out at the beginning of each game, and they all have a combat value threshold that you have to meet to defeat them, and they all have their own like special rewards that you get for defeating them. So there's a lot more variety now in that respect compared to the base game, where you pretty much always got the same thing for helping out your sponsored adventurer.
Yeah, like if you're familiar with the game, the first time you get something for your sponsored adventure, you get some potions, which help you manipulate dice. And the other 2 rewards were like just fill in a circle. Okay. And the creatures allow us to like really mix that up and give you like permanent buffs. There's a lot more effects and bonuses that you can mix and match to change those sort of rewards that you're used to. And those combos you would set up from the original game.
We've got some solo players out there. Robust solo play with this?
Yeah, that's definitely what we were going for. We had, just a really basic solo mode in the original game, and so we really wanted to try and expand that out in this version here. And so what we now have is we have a sort of solo AI player that you're playing against. We have this traveling merchant board down here, and so there will actually be cards that are in front of the traveling merchant. We're trying much more to replicate the two-player experience in the solo mode here. And so as this happens, it's going to go back to a rotating carousel of these order cards, just like a two-player game would, and the traveling merchant will occasionally claim some of those cards. So stuff that you see that you think might come back to you don't sometimes, just like in a real multiplayer game.
Stacey's got a good question. I'm always curious. Yeah. Are these expansions that were kind of culled from the game to make the base game more, easy to get out there, streamlined and all that? Or were these things that, how long were they in development? Were these things that you wanted to add on later?
Yeah, I mean, I think, gosh, Mike, I don't know if you remember exactly when this happened, but as far as me and these ideas, I didn't really think too much about the expansions until after the base game was out. And then at some point, Mike asked me about it, and then that started the whole brainstorming process.
I remember the first time I played it was at Unpub. You brought the ideas with you to Unpub, in Baltimore, and we played through them all.
Right.
I don't know. I don't remember planting the seed ahead of that. But I guess if I did, good for me. But I mean, I thought I think what Clarence brought and the ideas he brought, I know some things he put in the expansion to sort of address some of this game was very well received, but some of the few negative quibbles that people had with the game, like Clarence definitely tried to address with some of the expansions. So I think he did a little bit of everything with the expansions, and that's why there's so many different modules. He's like, oh, I want to improve the solo player. So here's some ideas around that. And people had quibbles with drawing cards and getting a random order. So here's how I'm going to address that. And
Jay says, how much take that? How punchy is that? You guys talked about the interaction that's built into the game more than most roll and writes, but how punchy? Very punchy.
So I would say in the base game, there's
negative quibbles. I like that, Evan.
I would say in the base game, there's not very much. I mean, there is kind of the rotating order cards. There's always the chance that you're looking to your right at something you don't have yet, and then that person takes it, right? That's before you get it. But that's not quite a really hard feeling take that, because usually it's because they need it or they were able to fulfill it. It's not like hate drafting necessarily most of the time.
You're not blocking out people's squares like on
right.
some of the games. It's not that kind of punchiness, right?
Right. But with that said, there is in the Draft of the Dragons, one of the things that we did add was an optional action card as part of this new action selection system, which we haven't talked about yet, that can let you steal orders from other players' shops.
Okay.
But again, that's a very optional thing. Some people will be really turned off by that, and that's fine. You don't have to play with it. But we've also had some people ask for more player interaction. So that's
I think so. For me, I would even rewind the question and go what do you mean by take that? Because I think take that means different things to different people.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Sometimes take that is literally if there's interaction and someone can mess with my thing at all, and I'm not playing a strictly solo game. If people can do anything other than take a worker placement spot, some people define that as take that. I define take that as more of those games where you're spending actions to set, instead of doing what you need to do to help yourself score more points, you're actually spending actions or turns or whatever to set the leader of the game back. You're literally saying take that, because I'm in third or second, and the second and third players need to get the first player to knock him down so they can actually have a chance at winning.
It needs to be hateful for it to be a hate draft.
Right. So so it depends on how you define take that.
Yeah.
We do not have any of that type of stuff. If you are taking someone's order, I agree with Clarence that the nastiest thing in the game is this entice action when everyone selects there's an action selection phase in Draft of the Dragons where everyone selects a secret action and plays it face down, then you reveal it. And you can do things like just take a potion. You can start researching a potion recipe, which gives you a powerful effect. You can advertise, which helps you select the orders and the people that are coming into your shop, or you can swap an order in your shop with an order in front of someone else's shop. And that is the nastiest thing we have in the game. And for me, that's not that nasty.
Yeah.
Personally. But I mean, I know that I'm not as much of a Euro gamer as other people are, so I have a higher threshold for that anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a game about objecting to other people doing things during the game. So I mean, you're not opposed to interaction. Tell us about the Dragons one though. What do we have in store with the Dragons expansion, Clarence?
Yeah, I mean, so Mike just covered some of it there. The big, like, kind of core thing here is this new action selection phase that happens kind of at the beginning of each round. And so each player is going to have a set of action cards that can do one of several different things each round. You might just do the brew action, which will just get you an extra potion. You might do the recipe action, which will get you one of these recipe cards that are dealt out at the beginning of the game. I'll come back to those. Or you can do the advertise action, which can let you kind of there's like now a central market of these higher value, more difficult order cards that you can kind of once you see one that you think you want to go for, you can use your advertise action and reserve that order. And what that means is you take it out of the market, put it by your sheet with a little guild seal token on it, which means that you've reserved it. You haven't completed yet. You have until the end of the game to complete it. And if you do, great. And if you don't, then it counts as -2 coins, -2 victory points at the end. So there's a little bit of making sure that you want something before you do that. But yeah, so those and the entice action, the swapping thing that we the take that action that we talked about earlier. Those are kind of like the big actions that you get during that action selection phase. Now, as far as the recipe cards go, that was another big thing here. We've got these new we've got 8 new recipe cards, one associated with each enchantment in the game. And so each one will give you if you take the recipe, it has a couple potion icons on there showing the 3 colors of or some of the 3 colored potions from the original game. And so now the colors have meaning. So to do a certain recipe, you'll need to have certain color potions to do whatever the ability of that potion is. Or alternately, since each potion recipe is associated with a enchantment, if you have completed that enchantment on your player sheet, it allows you to use any color potion to get those abilities. So that's just more kind of different player powers that we wanted to introduce into the game through that system there.
Very nice. Yeah. Jay said you answered his questions. He's already backed it. Thank you, Jay.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you, Jay.
Awesome.
Thanks, Jay.
Any stretch goals? Any bonus content we're talking, Mike?
So we're really moving away from stretch goals, sort of as a company and a philosophy. I think back when we started on Kickstarter, it made a lot more sense to do than it does now. In my experience, the publishers who are doing Kickstarter right have already planned out their stretch goals, and they're just using it to fuel, the crowdfunding engine. So for me, I just don't like putting these artificial money goals with something we've sort of already planned for on including. So what we're moving towards more is like, I really like interacting with the community and like having stuff going on during the Kickstarter. I mean, obviously the first day is a big deal, but I like having stuff going on throughout the time. So we're really moving more towards these like daily reveals or like free gifts or unlocks, whatever you want to think of it. So, I mean, there's stretch goals in the fact that like every day you're going to get something new added to the game. But unlike stretch goals, we're giving it to you no matter what. Like now that we've funded, we're going to give you unlocks. And we already even have on our page, since you're on there on the video, if you scroll down, I think we have like free gifts and like live streams. So basically we're trying to have like a live stream. We want to have something for the community to interact with. every day. So if they're checking the campaign regularly, whether they're just stopping by to leave a comment, check on how it's doing, whether they want to see what the new unlock is, whether they want to sign in to a stream like this one or a future stream to ask questions or see more about the game. We're trying to just have stuff going on at all times during our Kickstarter for the community to interact with. And this goes back to sort of my comment earlier about conventions, which is what I think is so great about conventions is, you're in person and you get to make some real connections. And the great thing about Kickstarter is you get to make a lot of connections with a lot of backers. But having done as many Kickstarters as I've done, I've realized that the people who are actually like involved in the comments and interact there are sometimes sort of like the vocal minority. And there's plenty of people that just click the back button and they sort of leave, or they just click the back button and they watch passively from afar. So I'm trying to give them more options to interact with us and maybe get a little bit more insight into the game. So, if they don't feel like they have a lot to say as far as comments go, maybe they'll, instead of just reading the comments and checking the page regularly, maybe they'll watch a stream and come up with a good question about the game, or they'll feel like they got to know us better or our team better because they watched a stream of us playing it. So
that is fantastic. We'll keep an eye out on the project. Steve's got the link to it right there in the chat. So Chat Krewe, check it out. Thank you, Jay Bell, for backing it. Thank you, Stacy, for all the good questions on that. That's Merchants of Magic with the 2 expansions out on Kickstarter right now. We'll take a look at those. Already funded, so it's rolling along. Guys, this is a board game show, though. We gotta play a board game, right? Can't discount the crowd. We got to play a board game. So I thought we would do the Envy game. We haven't done that one in a while. Steve, why don't you give Clarence and Mike just a quick overview of what the Envy game is?
Sure. What we're going to do is we're going to play kind of like a Chat Krewe version of maybe 20 questions of some sort. Mike, I think, has drawn the short straw and is going to be the person who thinks of a game. Now, the idea of an Envy game, where BJ would probably say this is the game that if you had the perfect conditions, the perfect people to play with, the time to do it, the money to buy that Grail game that you can't quite find, what would be the game that you would play if you could drop everything right now and play it in the perfect condition? Mike's thought of one. Hopefully hasn't told us what it is. The 3 of us, Clarence, BJ, and I, are going to try to ask some questions to guess what it is. The chat folk can jump in and type theirs in the chat as well and post their guesses. Yep. And if Mike stumps us, Mike wins. But then otherwise, the first person to get it is the winner of the Envy.
That's right, and we're competing against the Chat Krewe, so we're trying to outthink them too. And they'll be asking questions. Their questions are not going to count, but Steve and I and Clarence will try to keep track of roughly 20 questions. This is the Envy game presented by our friends at Game Toppers LLC. Remember, make your game nights a showstopper when you play on a Game Topper. They got that Kickstarter 4.0 coming up. I think
first guess already on the table.
We have a guess already. So we always start out with kind of the same question. Mike, you understand the rules of the game, right?
I do.
And it's a competitive, not a cooperative game, right? Okay, good. Not your game. I'm talking about the game, the Envy game.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
As the host, I'm going to start with the first question. Is it, Mike, a cooperative or a competitive game? Which one is it? I'm going to guess it's competitive.
It is a competitive game.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Clarence, you got a question? I see you scratching like you were really, deep in.
Let's say, was it released in the past 5 years?
Great question.
It was not.
Okay. Oh, it's older than 5 years. Okay. Steve, what you got?
Would you call this a very thematic game?
Yes.
Okay.
Does it have miniatures?
No.
No minis. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Okay.
Is it in the BGG Top 100?
Definitely not.
Uh-oh.
He's going deep. Jay is asking, are there meeples?
Yes, I would say there are meeples.
All right, so we got
I would say there are meeples makes the
Well, they're not official meeples. They're like custom shaped meeples.
But they're
yeah.
Okay.
But they're made of wood. Yeah, they're made of wood.
The Waziples from
But I know some people, I know some people, so they are custom shaped meeples, wooden pieces. Yeah.
All right, so we got meeple type pieces. It's competitive. It's thematic. Hasn't come out in the last 5 years. Any other questions from the chat crew?
Nothing yet. Let me think. Are there
It's
dice in the
victory
game?
points the winning thing? Is that what it's about? Is it about victory points?
So you do not win by having the most victory points, but there is a point threshold each round.
Nail
Nail down the date more. 5 years wasn't enough. We might need to go. We know how far back we have to go here. Do you have a question, Stacy? Throw one out there.
What you got, Clarence? What's your question?
I was gonna say, would you consider it to be a fantasy game?
Good question. I like it.
I would say no.
Okay.
Okay. Is there an IP associated with it?
No.
Okay, not an IP. So not an IP game, no miniature, no minis, but it does have meeple type things. It's thematic.
It's a little obscure.
It's a little obscure. It's not in the top 100, probably not in the top 1,000 of BGG. Not IP based. Is there any social deduction aspect to it?
No. I mean, typical social deduction game, no. But I mean, you're trying to read your opponents, you know.
Okay,
like
but not like BSG where you've got a hidden trader.
No, definitely not.
Like
no.
Okay.
Is there any sort of grid in the game?
Nope.
You were thinking Battleship, Clarence?
I don't know.
It's not that.
I was thinking any like even hex grids or any sort of area
super
control
tic-tac-toe.
What's that ideal player count?
Good question.
I would say the ideal player count is 2 to 3.
Ooh.
Okay.
But it does play to 4.
Okay. My question here. The designer of the game, for people who are really in the hobby, would they say, "Oh, I know who did that"? Is it a recognizable? Okay.
Nope.
So we're getting obscure.
Yeah, but here I'll give.
Oh wait,
Clarence,
does it have frogs in it?
I would have to. I don't think so. It's not a prominent feature.
So it's not cosmic.
Is there a frog on one of on a component in the game? Maybe. Like I would.
No,
I don't have all the art memorized.
I was thinking.
Here's what I will say though: the designer and this game came from the video game space.
But it's not IP.
It's not IP, but I'm sure that the designers and people behind the game are from the video game space.
It's not legal. It's not League of Legends thing because that one's cooperative.
Stacy is asking if it has combat.
No combat.
What's another? And it's not any game by Clarence Simpson, who used to do video games.
No, that'd be really mean. But I mean, it definitely was like I
did my homework, Clarence,
a little bit because of the video game thing. It's definitely people who, I think this is the only time they dabbled in the board game space.
Ivy Studios is the publisher. Jay wants to know. No, it's not Moon Records.
I think Ivy Studios isn't more than 5 years old.
That's true.
Am I wrong about that?
Yeah.
I don't think they're more than 5 years old.
No, you're right. Yeah, not Moonrakers. Does Toby have a guess, Steve?
No.
You guys want a couple more? I'll give you a couple more
complaining.
factoids. The game was kickstarted.
Okay.
Can it play in under an hour or hour or less?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Does it have dice?
Nope.
So it's not Alien Frontiers. Okay.
Is there a board?
There is a board, but it's just to keep track of this point threshold.
Are you playing with a hand of cards?
Yes.
Hand of cards.
Maybe you're just trying to nail the mechanism down?
I think it has a very unique mechanism.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the conceit of the game is really cool. I'd love to see another game. But on your turn, all you really do is play one card in some way, in different ways. There's different ways you can play a card, but that's all you do on your turn.
It's not fantasy themed.
There's different ways you can play a card. The cards are multi-use?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you put the meeples on the cards?
Nope.
I think Jay's right here. We're going to get to this point where we're going to say, "Oh, okay."
I mean, I think this game's a little bit of a hidden gem personally, which is why I sort of picked it. But I was also afraid that when I was answering the question, everything else would be super obvious because I didn't.
I'm hoping you're right about the gem, but I definitely think you're right about hidden.
Has the designer done anything? Has the designer done anything we would have recognized? Any other games?
I don't think so. I'd have to go to BGG and click. So I'm gonna click.
So one.
If they have any other, they do not have any other board game, but they definitely have video game credits.
So one hit wonder. Is it I Ran So Far Away? No.
No.
Thinking one hit wonders.
So
yes, it was designed by a flock of seagulls, BG.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
So you said it's not an IP, but would you say it's an homage to an IP?
No, I don't think so.
Good question.
Worker is worker placement in the game?
No.
Doesn't sound like it. No. No.
Here, we'll get so
one more
on
hit.
your okay, one more hit. So on your turn, you play a card. And you can either play the card for points, play the card for its effect, or save it for a future round.
And the only thing the board does is track the points. And you're playing the card for points. Let's see.
Do you guys think theme would help us? We asked if it was fantasy before.
I think theme gives it away. So I'm not going to personally give you that theme. I mean, I think the mechanisms lend into the theme that I just listed.
It also wasn't a clear no to when I asked fantasy. Right? You said I wouldn't call it fantasy, which sounds like fantasy adjacent or something.
Jace's Karmaka?
Yep, that's it.
Oh, it is it. Wow. DJ Bell with the big win. You know, I don't know this game. So
I've never heard of this.
Very thematic about trying to go through reincarnations.
Yep.
Wow. I don't know this game.
And a beautiful game, too.
Give us the elevator pitch. What's it about?
So the artwork is absolutely gorgeous in this game.
Yes.
I mean, it's mostly a deck of cards, but the whole idea is you're trying to work your way up to be an enlightened being. So you have to hit a certain threshold of points or karma. I think they're karma points.
Yep.
Each lifetime to move up, the ladder. And the first one to hit the top wins. So it's not a point-based game. You're trying to just get there first. But the cool thing, the coolest mechanism about it, the thing that I love about it, it's actually one of those games, like, I don't think it's ever going to be in print again. So, like, I'm never giving my copy up because this is one of those, like, if you give it up, you'll never get it back. But one of the coolest things about it is the card effects. If you play a card on somebody, like, there's talk about take that. This game 100% has take that. But if someone plays a really nasty card on you, you have the option of, like, taking that bad karma they've given you and storing it for, like, your future life. Game. So it's all about playing your cards, like, but also the cards with the coolest effects are worth a ton of points, and you need to hit higher and higher point thresholds to move up. So you're constantly, like, building. It's such a simple game, but there's so much complex strategies in it because you're playing cards for their effects at crucial times to bump someone down so they can't ascend in that hand of cards. And then you're also, like, storing cards for your future life to bank points to ascend the next round or the next hand. Because as you move up the ladder and you need higher and higher points, it gets tough. Like, you really need to match the set and do it right.
When I saw the pictures of it, I didn't remember the name at all. When I saw the pictures of it, I'm like, I remember playing this game with DJ Bell. And yeah, we wrote about it, me and Jay.
Yeah, so Jay's asking what video game is inspired by. It's not inspired by a video game, but the designer of it is from an independent video game company called Hemisphere Games. They had a game called Dyson. I think they had to rename it because of, like, Dyson vacuums. But if you look up Hemisphere Games, they're like an indie publisher. They were. I mean, I don't know if they're still around. It was back in 2016 when I was more in the indie video game side of things. Their website still works. Osmos is what they renamed their game to. Their video game.
When you started talking about the cards and the way they played, and then I saw those rings, and I remember, oh yeah, those rings. How about that one though? Karma, Chameleon, Steve. Come on, man. Give that up, right? Come on.
Yes,
That was the
seagulls.
So I do think this is like a hidden gem. Like if you can find this game, I mean, it's definitely out of print, but if you can find it cheap somewhere, I mean, the artwork, I think at a convention when I bought this game, like I bought this game, I think I saw it at PAX East, and the video game developer were there, like they were, you know, in indie games. Their indie game is half the booth, and like this board game they were working on is the other half. And the artist was there, and he's like a French Canadian artist. So they're from Canada, I believe. And he was showing me like, because I think it hadn't been Kickstarted yet. So it's one of the first board games I kickstarted on Kickstarter, I believe.
Two things I remember.
You look at my profile.
Very dreamy art.
Yes.
And when Mike was talking about what is Take That, that's the definition of Take That.
Yeah.
That game was so punchy, Jay. Oh my God. Me and Jay and Bradley are just like messing with each other the whole time. It's all
and I could see what Stacy might say at that point, that maybe that doesn't seem so terribly Buddhist. Maybe not so compassionate to try and make the other person into a dung beetle by the time.
Said, best $5 he's ever spent at the Ross outlet store. Nicely done. Mike, you stumped us. That's a great. Well, you didn't stump Jay, but you stumped
Jay.
us. That was great. Man.
Yeah, Jay, good job, man. I thought with people watching and stuff, you know, I thought if I picked something like the game I really want to find right now and not to pay $100 for is Heat Pedal to the Metal.
Yeah.
But that would have been like an easy guess. So,
Clarence, did you have an OnV game? If had you thought of one? If it would have been?
No, I hadn't really. No, I was hoping Mike would do it.
He said not it too quickly and then turned off. Didn't have to think about that anymore.
All right.
Well, then I had to make it competitive. You know, the competitive spirit of me was like, I can't pick something obvious. So
right.
Heat Pedal to the Metal would have.
But it's on my shelf back there. You know, it's one of those games like I personally really like. I mean, I really want someone else. I've even thought about it myself, like this design mechanic of, you know, because I love deck building and like this is basically like hand building where like you're taking a card and being like, I'm saving this for next round. And like you're losing that resource to do something this round. And like I want to try to figure out a cool way to put that in one of my games, but I haven't figured it out yet.
Well, that was a good one. Good choice, Karma. Well, that was a good one. All right, board gamers, that's it for another episode of Gumbo Live. I want to thank my guests, Mike from Rock Manor Games and Clarence Simpson, the designer of Merchants of Magic. It's out there on Kickstarter. It's already funded, so make sure you check out the Kickstarter links. It's in there. Hey, how can they reach you? Mike, starting with you. If people have questions about Merchants of Magic or any of the other awesome Rock Manor games, like Lawyer Up Season 2 right there. Beautiful artwork, by the way, on that cover. That's really, really cool. How did they get in touch with you?
We have all this. We have got like a YouTube channel, Facebook page. Obviously, while the Kickstarter's up, you can drop a comment there or a message on Kickstarter. Our website's rockmanorgames.com. So we have a Discord channel. So if you go to rockmanorgames.com and pick an outlet, you'll probably be able to get in touch with us pretty easily.
We didn't get to talk about it, but I'm going to have to ask you about how you got that big, giant private room in Lucas Oil Stadium at Gen Con. I want to know the story behind that. So we'll have to talk about that another time. So
there's not a big story to it. I mean, it's the first year they've expanded over there. So like, you know, as Gen Con's gotten bigger and bigger, like they need more space to accommodate people.
Yep.
And this was like the first year they had people up in those suites. I would say it sort of had like, you know, it was hard to find, but it was a cool space. So I've actually been in contact with them a lot. Like, you know, spoiler alert, but we're going to try to be there again next year. Huh? We're going to have like a Rock Manor Games headquarters up in Lucas Oil Stadium, hopefully. Hopefully we'll be close to the elevator. But we're also going to be trying to run events there for fans. So again, going back to sort of this theme of this, which is some of the games that we have coming down the pipeline, we're going to be play testing, you know, have events that you can sign up for, and you'll get to come up and play them in a suite with myself or one of the designers of the game or something like that. So
BJ will want to come work the velvet rope in front and bounce for you.
I am fine with that. Ian checking in. Will this Merchants of Magic will not be at Sobo, Ian, but there will be some other games. In fact, Set a Watch is going to be. It was one of the demo games, and it'll be there in the library. So, Ian, if you want to try out Set a Watch, both Barnes and Tojo will be there to demonstrate it for you there, Mike. We got a couple of big fans of Set a Watch that are bringing their blinged out copies for it. So, Clarence, how do they get in touch with you if they have any questions about the Wolves or about Merchants of Magic?
Yeah,
or if they want to hire you for their daughter's prom.
Yeah, I'm still mainly on kind of what's left of Twitter at this point. I'm at Stoic Hamster over there, and
maybe the best Twitter handle I've ever seen, Stoic Hamster. I love that one, man. Well, good. Congratulations on some great games. Like I told you before the show, or maybe during the show, it was Jack's number 1 game of 2022. Fantastic. Everybody should check out the Wolves. And then keep an eye out because Jared and I are going to be playing Lawyer Up Season 2 on Twitch on our Twitch Tuesdays. Well, they're sort of Tuesdays. It's whenever we're free. Yeah. We're in the Gumbo Pot on Twitch playing your games live on Twitch. Check those out. Make sure to like our Facebook page, facebook.com/BoardGameGumbo, or our YouTube, or any of the other social medias, like Clarence said, what's left of X and all the other things. All you have to do is look for @BoardGameGumbo. You can find that. Helps us get the word out about all of our upcoming shows, including Liz Davidson coming in from Beyond Solo. We've also got the Beans and Dice podcast crew coming in, and you never know who else is going to show. Catch us on Twitch, twitch.tv/BoardGameGumbo every other Tuesday night. I am BJ from Board Game Gumbo. And for Mike and for Clarence and for Steve and everybody in the chat crew, thank you for listening in, or thank you for watching. And we'll see you next time. Until next time, laissez, bon temps, rouler.